Hello, and welcome to another Eleiko education webinar. Today, we are going to talk about how we can elevate our dumbbell training, how to incorporate dumbbells in our training, and so forth. So first off, my name is Patrick Warmel, and I have about a decade of experience coaching and educating people across various demographics, from general population to the taxable population. So I work with primarily right now, and I definitely understand the value of consistently pursuing a higher level of performance through continuing education events like these webinars, reading articles, and so forth. So the other big piece that aligns really well with Eleiko and the values is, just acting with kindness. And our overall goal here at Eleiko is to make people stronger for better performance in sport and life. And when we do this together, when we grow stronger physically and mentally, we become healthier and happier individuals who together we can build a stronger world to support that mission. So thank you very much for joining us and being here to, again, continue to learn, pursuing a high level of performance, and acting with kindness with your kind words. Today, our agenda, we're really just going to be talking about how dumbbells, how you can elevate your training using dumbbells, and how we can understand and apply dumbbell training for fitness professionals and enthusiasts. So we'll explore different loading strategies and exercise techniques. We'll give you a framework for how to apply various progressions and regressions in your exercises with dumbbells, and how to effectively integrate dumbbells for a range of training goals, from strength to hypertrophy or muscle building to power and conditioning. Throughout the presentation, we'll provide some videos of examples of dumbbell focused training exercises, and also you'll have a program that you can download in your handouts. You'll see that you'll have a full 4-week, 3-day dumbbell template. Okay, and we're going to dive into that throughout the presentation here. So let's talk a little bit of history. I love history. And I found this actually pretty interesting myself as I kind of dive into why do they call it a dumbbell, and where did the dumbbell come from? Obviously, the concept of lifting weights to increase strength is not a new idea. The origins of the dumbbell trace back to the ancient civilizations of Greece, Egypt, and India, long before they became a gym staple. So there's been drawings found of ancient Greek athletes swinging their, what they call halters, their dumbbells. There's pictures of them doing bicep curls. Gotta love that. And deadlifts, lunges, and also jumping with them to add distance. And that's really what they used it for their Olympics. When they used to would do a long jump, they wouldn't run into a sand pit. They would actually use these halters, as you can see in the top right there, to swing back and use them for momentum to increase their length of their broad jump. And they were anywhere from 4 to 20 pounds or 2 to 9 kilograms, and they kind of resemble a modern dumbbell shape. They were typically U-shaped. They were designed to fit the hand, very comfortable in the palm. In Egypt, they would use them for soldiers and athletes during peacetime to maintain physical strength, and similar to how we use dumbbells today. In India, they would have their wrestlers and their warriors were known to use what they would call a nal, which was a strength training device that was bigger than a dumbbell but shorter than a barbell, which was a kind of a wooden rod with some weights on both ends of them. Then where the dumbbell came into play was first seen in England and was initially referred to as the dumbbell or the silent bell, where bell ringing was a common form of exercise. And when they would like to practice without creating a noise, a dumb or silent bell, a weight was attached to a short bar, creating the first version of what we now call the dumbbell. Now that has progressed quite a bit. Now our modern dumbbells, very, I shouldn't say not different, but they have developed, right? In the present day, the dumbbell has become a staple piece of equipment in gyms and homes worldwide. Its popularity is not only a testament to its effectiveness, but also to the adaptability of its design. Whether you're a beginner or an advanced lifter, the humble dumbbell has really something to offer and is designed for your needs. Whether it's a loadable dumbbell where you can put plates on them with adjusting the weight as needed, various weights, to more of our fixed dumbbells. Here at Eleiko, we have the Evo dumbbell, where we actually have the handle and the weights will rotate around the handle, much like our barbells. We also have our fixed plate dumbbell, where weights on each end, cannot take them off, right? And there's lots of variations with the design of them, whether they're round or they have this hexagon shape to them for various reasons. The product development's pretty fascinating in itself, and all the things that they consider to make these, from durability to what type of material they're made out of, to handle size, to for weight ranges and increments. It's pretty fascinating. Now that you got your history lesson, we can now dive into actually why train with dumbbells. What are the advantages of dumbbells? So I think training with dumbbells provides a unique advantage over some of the other training equipment, right? Dumbbells require you to move two different implements at the same time if you're using two arms, two dumbbells, right? So keeping the dumbbell stable during movement and maintaining proper posture requires really an increase in core stabilization or activation, so we can, one, move them with efficient motion, but also to maintain our posture throughout that. So a strong trunk definitely will lead to a better opportunity to perform optimally and also mitigate injury potential. And controlling these two independent implements, right, makes a more complex motor activity when performing the mini exercises that you can do with them. There's the added balance, there's the added muscle activation, which also can influence how much force and stress is placed on the body and where it's actually being placed on the body. You can be holding a dumbbell on one side. Yeah, that's going to be activated on this side, but what else has to activate the opposite side of the torso to maintain, depending upon how heavy it is relative to your body mass, right, to maintain a proper posture, so we don't just fall over to the side. Right? So there's a lot of different variations that we can do here. I think that some big advantages with dumbbells is just the portability and minimal training space that you actually is required with them. When you have larger equipment, it takes a larger footprint in your facility or at your home, wherever you're training. If you want to go to the park or to the beach to train, you can throw them in the back of the car, and they're not going to be rolling around all over the place. They're pretty easy to store, to travel with. And if you have one dumbbell in the corner of your room, you basically have a gym, right? It's something to start with. If you're training with groups, it's an absolute a game changer to have various weights and be quick and easy and efficient with your training time that you have with them. And it's possible to have 20, 25 individuals training with dumbbells in a relatively small area, 500 square feet or so. They're great for all ability levels because of the modifications that we have now, with whether they're loaded dumbbells or more of a fixed dumbbell with various ranges of weight. And I think most coaches and trainers would agree that on average, it's much easier to modify the exercise complexity or progress the exercise to better match the various ability levels that they're working with versus some of the other equipment that's out there. I think also most people, from my experience, find dumbbells less intimidating than other equipment. So a lot of beginners that are coming into us don't necessarily want to go to the big bulky items or equipment. Start them off with the dumbbells, allow them to adapt, feel comfortable with it, and then that's when you can introduce some other pieces of equipment to it. It's a great way to get people engaged and started with free weight training. And I think another big piece of it is the versatility of using dumbbells. There's an extensive range of exercises that can be performed really in order to provide any stimulus that you want for improving, muscular strength, power, or endurance qualities. You can definitely get that done with dumbbells. For many individuals, monotony is a aspect of training that they find difficult to overcome. Doing the same exercises with the same equipment day after day, week after week. And adding dumbbells to the training program can increase the training variation significantly and potentially reduce that mental kind of staleness of training. So physiologically, variation can help place the appropriate dosage of stress on the neuromuscular system. So frequent variation and the variables require the body to adapt to a variety of regular changing stresses applied to the body. That's a SAID principle. And with that being said, exercise variation should be approached systematically with a focus on progressive overload and making sure that the exercise challenge or the complexity matches the person's ability. And that can have a nice flow to it that we're mainly going to be talking about for the remainder of the presentation here. How we can change up our exercise variation and can be focused on specific adaptations within someone's ability level. We also have the option, obviously, to do unilateral work with dumbbell training, where I have just one arm working at a time, okay? Or I can place that equipment in different areas of the body, again, to apply a specific force on the body, depending upon, again, what goal that you're searching for. So our training strategy. This is our performance strategy. If you've been with us before, you probably have seen this. Just to review it, this is going to be wrapped up into a lot of our education. This is the staple of our education in all of our courses that we have, from our weightlifting course, our powerlifting course, our functional training course, our tactical training course, and even our readiness and recovery course. This comes into play because performance is the measurement of how well we integrate the physical and mental components of our ability, the complexity, and then what's our perception from that. So to break this down, ability tells us what someone is able to do mentally and physically, and is the key to performance enhancement. It leads us to know, as a trainer, as a coach, even for ourselves, a fitness enthusiast, right? How much complexity or the amount of challenge can be handled at a specific point in time. You have your overall ability, and you also have your daily ability, because it will fluctuate from day to day to day. We've all been there before where, we were able to pump out, 10 reps of 135, no problem. But the following week, you get to 6, 7 repetitions and you're like, wow, this is just feeling heavy. That's just due to our daily stress and how we're managing the stress during that time based upon our daily readiness. Complexity is what we are being asked or told to do mentally and physically. Complexity is a key component to, are we placing too much stress on somebody or not enough stress on somebody based upon their ability? It can be the amount or the speed of the motion. From a mental standpoint, it could be from a coaching standpoint. The more instruction and the cues and the feedback that I use, the faster I speak, the more information that I'm giving to somebody is going to increase the complexity of the challenge or the task at hand. To optimize performance, what we're trying to accomplish here is to level out the complexity should match the level of ability. And if we're able to do that, that's going to generally enhance someone's perception of the training experience and what they're trying to accomplish here. Perceptions can be either positive or negative based upon how they make us feel. And we all have perception about past experiences to the current experience. And they usually turn into an opinion about something, which determines if we like it or not. That can be a specific training exercise. That can be a specific training tool or equipment. That could be the coach-client relationship. And when we're experiencing something too far or too below our ability, then we tend to have a poor perception because it was either too difficult or too easy for us. And this is where and why we need to better match what we're asking to match someone's ability. Right? When complexity matches the ability, it is going to be likely that a positive perception will be achieved. And when a positive perception will really internally motivate someone, they're going to want to come back to you. They've seen that training experience as something that is worth the time and effort to put into, which means they have been empowered, right? And they feel more accomplished and better about themselves. So we always want to start with the ability level, and the ability should always dictate how much complexity is given to the individual. And complexity should match a person's ability. And when that happens, perception tends to be positive. When perception is positive, the client athlete becomes empowered. And that's where you get consistency. So some of the personal trainers out there that are trying to get people to renew with them, if we're able to enhance someone's perception, the likelihood of them renewing and getting more sessions with you, it increases. But perception is something not to sleep on. It's something to kind of keep in the back of the mind when we are designing our training sessions and when we're interacting with our clientele. As far as exercise selection and how we can change kind of the complexity, right? It's going to have a large impact on the technique, right? If the exercise is selected beyond someone's ability level, it can be too complex or too unknown. You're just throwing things at them and they're, I've never seen this, and you can think of and just to yourself about how that feels for that person and what their comfort level is with that person. And that will absolutely modify or influence the performance output of that movement or exercise. So for an example, having a client perform a full snatch or clean when they've never even seen it before, right? That may be too far beyond their ability, setting them up for really failure at that specific time. So when selecting and performing exercises, always start as simple and as easy as possible. Let's break things down a little bit. We can change we'll go into this in more detail here, what we can modify to get that right challenge for them, for the ability. I think it's always better to progress every rep until you find their limit than to start too complex and have to regress them. That kind of, that has a sense of failure there, where progression means that they're succeeding. Where they have that expectation, they have a benchmark to strive for, and again, that drives the internal motivation. So how do we change exercise complexity? Well, we have a framework where we use equipment, position, and action. Right? All movements require the interaction of equipment, position, and action. We can manipulate each one of these with a strategy. Okay, this is our framework that we've laid out here. So if we change the equipment that we use, the position that we're starting in our setup position, or any of the actions, the desired outcome, okay, we can either increase or decrease the complexity of it without just throwing more load on there. Typically, that's how we kind of get our progressive overload, is just throw more load on there, more load. Well, you can also change the equipment, change the setup position, change the action that we're using to get that overload. So in essence, the EPA process is kind of the guideline telling us how to position our clients and our athletes, how they should perform the actions, and what happens when we change the equipment. Equipment is pretty self-explanatory. When we select the equipment desired, that can be based upon their preference. If we're using the dumbbells, which we're talking about today, again, this can change how the forces are delivered throughout the body, okay? And our body will adapt to that accordingly to where it is placed. So the importance of really the equipment is that it can manipulate the mechanics of our setup and the actual motion, which can, again, dramatically influence the complexity and perception of the individual. So for an example, using a dumbbell may be easier than using a barbell for many people to learn the movement of a squat. It feels more comfortable for them, which can increase their perception while still getting the benefits of the exercise. The same principle can hold true for many other exercises, all exercises, whether it's bench pressing, rows, or our weightlifting, powerlifting movements. Our position is going to be the aligning of ourselves in a manner that provides us with good mechanical advantage for the upcoming action. This is our setup for an exercise and has an impact on exercise technique. Right? Optimal position is going to be dependent upon the task and individual person. The proper positioning, it will allow the client athlete to create certain leverage, be able to use their body either integrated or isolated to execute the exercises safely and effectively. So it's going to consist of our stance, our grip, the body equipment relationship, and tension. I'll break that down for you. Okay. The stance is just how the feet or the base of support are positioned to perform the exercise and will determine how well they are able to perform the actions necessary for the exercise. So depending upon the client, the athlete, and their structure and their function of their body, their overall ability, right? If their feet are too narrow or too wide during a dumbbell goblet squat, it can hinder the mechanics, making the exercise feel more difficult than it should. This will also change, going back to the perception piece, how they feel about that exercise in the session, and even maybe their trainer or their coach. The grip is how and where the hands are positioned on the equipment, and will also determine how well they're able to perform the actions necessary for the exercise. We're looking at the body equipment relationship. This is a big one where dumbbells can have a huge influence on again, the forces placed on the body, where we are able to place the dumbbell in relation to the body, right? And that's what it is. It's the body and equipment position relative to each other. So where the equipment is placed will change the mechanics and the stress on the body. And there are a number of mechanical attributes that should be understood to ensure that balance is achieved for proper leverage and technique for whatever the adaptation you're searching for. The tension throughout the body is a huge one, and really it goes to any movement in itself, no matter what equipment or position that you're in. Tension, right? Creating tension can, right, through the feet and the hips and the trunk, the hands and the shoulders, can help provide some stiffness in the tissues. And to create that can help increase our overall performance. It can help exercise feel more stable or fluid, which affects self-perception about the exercise session, trainer, and coach. And then finally, the action. The action is how a movement will be performed. And actions can really allow us to ingrain patterns. That is where we get our strength development for, right? And there can be specific movements or paths of motion, more of your different methods of strength training. Using a movement-based approach, we're looking at movement patterns. So squat, lunges, hinges, pressing and pulling. If you look at this using a three-dimensional approach, looking at direction, distance, and depth, learning to lunge is typically easier moving forward direction rather than lateral, and shorter distance, lower depths of range of motion. Again, all ways that we can manipulate the complexity to better match the overall ability of the person. So it's easy to fall into a comfortable routine with exercise selection, but it can be really helpful to have a framework and to include more variety in how we load movement patterns with dumbbells, where it's placed, what body position, what's the setup position for the exercise, and actually how do we perform the action? Or is it slow or fast? Again, going back to mechanics, where we place it, what we're doing with it at that time can really influence mechanics at center of gravity and torque on joints. And that actually will help determine which muscles will be involved and what degree. So think about, again, all the different variations, whether it's a double rack front squat, okay, or a goblet squat, or an offset squat. And we can hold it at the center line. We can hold it low. We can hold it all overhead. And that's all going to change the mechanics of motion, where the forces are being applied on the body. What else can we do to manipulate complexity? Well, we can kind of break this down still using the EPA approach, where if you look at equipment moving from unloaded, from a fixed path of motion to a loaded or more variable path of motion. And what we're really terming the variability piece of it is it refers to how much the exercise can vary from rep to rep or set to set or from week to week. So we can kind of break up the monotony of doing the same exercises over and over. Because ultimately, if we are constantly training with very specific physical parameters, that can actually set the body up for increased risk of injury just from overuse if we're so consistent just doing one motion or one piece of equipment all the time. So varying the equipment, the body positions, and the actions can positively change our performance relative to a specific task. You get better body proprioception, how we're moving in space, right? We have strengthening over time will help increase range of motion and control through that range of motion. Putting varying equipment, body positions will help modify and alter the muscle recruitment to perform that task. And ultimately, that all will effectively help improve your overall strength for a specific task. So whether you're modifying the range of motion, the amount of velocity, the force, or the amount of recovery in between, okay, these are all things that we can take into account with adjusting the complexity. So now that we have the exercise selection out of the way, we can start to then think about how we want to build the training session. And the way that we've built this out in the program that you have within your handout that you can download, it's a full dumbbell training template. What I want to implement or make sure that you know is you don't have to do all dumbbell training, right? If you have that available, if that's the only piece available, perfect. That's what that program is for you. With building the training session, I want to break this down where you could put dumbbells in to your training program if you're not already. So for our block one, so first off, we always start off with a good tissue and movement preparation. Make sure we get some self-massage happening, also with some muscle activation. I always want to make sure that we have these low-level isometric contractions that is for another presentation. And if you're interested in how we prepare, how we can manage our daily stress, and we have a readiness and recovery course that's both online and live that we can dive further into. For block one, we're trying to really begin with the most neurologically demanding movements, and that's going to be for power development. So full body movements executed with a little bit faster force, higher force. So examples like our weighted jump squats, our weightlifting derivative, cleans, snatches, jerks. With the dumbbell, which is really fun, and again, breaks up that monotony, is we can do this with 2 dumbbells. We can do this with 1 dumbbell, or we can actually alternate dumbbells through the motion. But priority must be given to the most goal-specific exercises earlier in the workout. So whatever that is for you, let's have that when we're least fatigued, and there's an efficient ordering for the client and athlete. So this is just one way to organize your training session, not the only way. I just want to make sure that that's clear too. And again, where we can place the dumbbell training through our different desired adaptations. So block 2 is going to be more of the physically demanding movements. So your traditional powerlifting exercises, if we're using a movement-based approach, and this is going to be our squats, our lunges, our hinges, our presses and pulls. So we want to think about being able to place the equipment relative to the body where we are mechanically most efficient and the strongest at. That's where I want the position and the action to be emphasized for this training block. Because ultimately we're trying to increase more of our relative strength or get some specific muscular adaptations for your athlete client. So examples like goblet squat, our dumbbell deadlift, some split squats, so some unilateral motion or some one-legged emphasis motion, our bench press variations and our row variations, all examples. For our secondary strength block, this is really where we can complement what we've already done in the training session, whether it is our heavy implement power or primary strength development. Now, what have we already received through our training, and what are we missing? So what are the full buckets and what are the empty buckets? And I want to fill up those empty buckets, the ones that we haven't hit yet. So whether it's planes of motion, whether it's variations of where we're holding the equipment and the positions of the body that I can set myself up when performing the action. Right? So this can be isolated or integrated movements. So isolated would be more of your bodybuilding movements. From an integrated, okay, again, thinking back to those movements that you haven't, the movement patterns that you haven't hit yet in the training session. So a lot of times it is that lateral movement or some rotational movement happening. And then if you did want to include dumbbells into more of a conditioning block, then we can use different methodology like time blocks or programming schemes where we're setting a specific time and pace, only resting when needed. We can do multiple exercises with the same weight before putting it down. Circuits, completing multiple exercises, with the same or different weights before resting. And then you can even do continuous flows with dumbbells. So using lighter weights and almost making like a dance-like transition from one movement into the other. Then we always finish with a nice cool down. Don't forget that. We can almost do the same process as our warm-up. Again, our readiness and recovery course goes further into that. So exercise selection will be based off of training goals. It will be ability dependent. This gives you just examples of what that looks like. Okay, we have some total body. We have 1 dumbbell, 2 dumbbell, and alternating options here. And these, some of these, I should say, will be found in that programming that you can download in your handout section. Here's a couple of videos, okay, that we have available also on eleiko.com/education, where we have a full mix of exercise library using different equipment and different purposes for the exercises. So we have our hang power snatch, trying to develop some power output using a single arm. You do this with 2 arms, do this alternating arms as well. You can see the variations that can come into play here with using dumbbells. We have our hang, power, clean, and jerk. A combination of 2 power exercises. Use speed and force with it. So coaching plays a major role in the exercise technique. So how we instruct, observe, and progress the client athlete in the performance of a specific exercise. And again, going back to that EPA process, the equipment, position, action process, combined with understanding mechanics and where the variations apply, where we're applying force through the body. We always just want to think about, again, trying to progress people rather than having to regress an individual. For our strength development, we have our lower body and upper body movements. Okay, for our lower body, for our squat, lunge, hinge, we can do it bilaterally, 2 stance or 2 legs on the ground. So varying up our base of support, which is going to influence the mechanics of the position or of the exercise. We can do 1-legged movements or 1-legged emphasis movement. Going back to really our 3-dimensional, what is the distance that we're traveling in? What's the depth? And what's direction am I moving in? For the upper body, we can do some presses and some pulls in a horizontal, so moving weight away from the chest and to the chest, and vertical, overhead and down to the shoulders. 2-arm, 1-arm, alternating, and even reciprocating, where it's almost like a piston-like motion, because we're just controlling two tools at the same time. So options here for lower body, got the deadlift. I always like to start people off before moving to a trap bar or open bar that we have, or a barbell. First, let's get the mechanics of the motion first before applying more complexity to the individual. The single leg deadlift. We have split squats. Before we do a single leg squat, let's make sure that we can do a split squat first. You can see how that works. And where we place that dumbbell can actually help the mechanics of the motion. So holding the dumbbell up here helps us sit back into a better squat position. For our upper body, you can see the variations of a bench press and an alternated action. We can add some rotation because the freedom of the motion with the dumbbell. This is a big game changer really with using dumbbells, is that we can allow a little bit of freedom of motion with dumbbells versus a very strict, like a barbell. Right? We can only move in kind of some stricter motion as we go throughout the action. And then the bent over row, we can set the positions up where you can kind of get more of a unique desired adaptation. So here I have to support my whole body while rowing. If I put my hand on a bench, I can take that weight off. I can take the stress off my body where I just need to focus on the pulling action of it. My body's working really hard on the opposite side to maintain that posture. Can have a unique effect in the training adaptation. And then for our secondary strength, there's a number of exercises in here. Again, these are just examples, ones that you'll find in that training program that you have available to download. We have carries in there. For our secondary strength, we have a movement pattern focus where, again, looking at what we haven't hit already in the training session, that's where we're going to complement our strength development there. So unilateral movements, a lot of rotational movements. We can actually get to some muscle group focus, doing some chest flies, shoulder raises, curls, calf raises, and focusing in on some core work, whether that is a flexion motion or anti-rotational motion. I had to throw some videos in here, of course, get some bicep curls in. Again, you can see the different variations of the grip, and we could just do it like more of a hammer curl here, okay, with dumbbells. Reverse curls, you can do kind of more of a rotational bicep curl. A lot of freedom with the dumbbell. Shoulder raises, and then we have lateral raises as well, sorry. Or lateral lunges, I should say, where this is where we are holding the weight can really change up how much force is going through the body, whether we're straddling the working leg or if the weight's more up towards our center line. Again, the center of gravity will change and really elicit certain muscles to turn on or have more activation involved during the movement. So those are examples of the actual exercises themselves, and can start to develop and put together a dumbbell exercise library for you. Now, the other thing to think about is what's the overall goal? What's the training theme that you want to apply here? So each theme has a little bit different intensity to it, and it can change the total amount of stress placed on the body. So this can be done by blocks, whether it's 4 weeks of just doing base, 4 weeks of build, 4 weeks of peak. It can be used concurrently, so 1 day's base, 1 day's build, 1 day's peak. And what you're actually going to see in your program that you can download is that it's all in one training session. So we're going to have a peak block, we're going to have a build block, and we're going to have a base block in your training session so you can experience it. Our base is really repeated effort. So trying to use both metabolic and muscular endurance qualities, improve the amount of work capacity that we have, to work under fatigue and increase the amount of work that can be accomplished over a given time. Our builds are maximal effort used to train the neuromuscular system, right? To improve the central drive, improve the ability to produce high efforts or high amounts of force. And it's slow force, where you put heavy weight. What's that motion? What's the velocity like? It's slow. Even though we're trying to move fast, it's still a little bit slower. It's a different stimulus than just moving light and fast. So changing up how we're activating the muscle fibers and getting them to kind of adapt to the stimulus that we're putting it on. And our peak is more of a dynamic effort used to develop explosive properties of the neuromuscular system, trying to improve your ability to rapidly activate the neuromuscular system to produce force fast, maybe shorter amount of shorter amount of force, but at high amounts of force. So this is kind of what it looks like here, and what your training program that you can download is kind of laid out to be here. So in our base day, we're going to be more in a higher range for our primary. If you look at our power development, it's going to be consistent throughout it, because we have to have a little bit lighter load. Apologize. We have to have a light to moderate load, moving very heavy, or sorry, moving very fast. Through our primary, that's where the major difference of the training sessions is going to be. So you can simply just use this training template and plug and play the right amount of complexity of the movement pattern to match your client and athlete's ability. I've used this quite a bit, quite extensively, and found that it works really well. Also, when you pair up how they're feeling that day, right? And that's what we're going to get into the next few slides here. This helps. This template that you're looking at right now is really to lay a solid foundation for general physical preparation. And that just refers to the overall ability to perform various physical tasks and activities efficiently and effectively. It's about being physically prepared for daily life, unexpected challenges, and definitely it forms the foundation for more specialized training down the road if that's a goal. When you go through this and you're getting a little bit of everything from your strength qualities, no, you're not going to be the strongest person in the world. No, you're not going to be able to run the fastest marathon, because that's very specific type of training. But what we're trying to do is be good enough at everything. We have our buckets are relatively full for the most part, and we can work on our weaknesses throughout the program. So again, life and well-being require a need to be good enough at everything. So if you're interested in the program, that's what you'll kind of experience here. The other major thing with having a template like this is that we're able to gauge our daily ability. So how we're coming in the training session. So we have our overall ability, which is our strength, our mobility, ability to think. And all this is going to fluctuate from day to day due to our sleep, how we're feeling physically, what's our mood like, how we've been eating and hydrating. And this will allow us to get a gauge for our client, athlete, or even yourself. I highly recommend it to ask yourself this subjective measurement. And then we are able to ultimately determine a programming strategy that is better or optimal for your daily readiness. Okay. So we have the 4 primary pillars of sleep, physical, mood, and nutrition. And what you can do is rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 3. Where are you today? Okay. And over time, you can track yourself and you can see some patterns that occur. Whether it's a hard training session, how are you feeling the next day? Okay. Or if it's a moderate training session, how are you feeling the next day? So over time, you can kind of track and compare your stress management through a program. And that's what programming is. Yes, you got to apply the stress placed on the body, but we also need that recovery piece to get the adaptation. And that's where successful programs happen. So where are you today? You can just drop a comment in the chat. Okay, what score are you based out of 12? Okay, are we in the 4 to 6 where there's a lot of stress happening? A 7 to 9 where there's moderate stress, or 10 to 12 minimal stress? You can see that there's going to be differences here on how we can train the body so we're not setting our clients up for injury potential or even illness. So this is the adjustments that we'll look at. We have our 4 to 6. We're going to just reduce the total volume through various acute variables, whether it's the overall volume or the rate of perceived exertion of the training session. We can do this by reducing our sets, reducing repetitions, reducing exercises. That was originally planned. We're just removing a little bit from it to reduce the overall volume and rate of perceived exertion. For 7 to 9, we're just going to do that a little less. So reduce sets by 1, or repetitions 1 to 2 per lift. Reduce the overall training session length by 15 to 20%, or take out 2 exercises instead of 3 or 4 in when we're a 4 to 6. And 10 to 12, you're good to go. Train, let's get after it. This is when we can push ourselves a little bit more physically and mentally, so we're able to push the adaptations that we're trying to receive. When we're 4 to 6, let's just maintain where we are, so we're not taking a full day off or a full week off of training and then have to come back, and you know how that is sometimes on the body, produce more force, more stress than what we typically would want. So our glass, think about it as a glass. This is typically when we're about a 4 to 6. We only have a little left in the tank. Training is a stress, so let's have a strategy to adjust our programming so we're not overfilling the glass. At 7 to 9, we're typically about halfway filled up. So think about what other demands outside of the training walls are occurring. Is it a high stress occupation, manual labor? Or do you have to chase around multiple kids after work? So think about some other stressors outside of the training room as well. And when we're 10 to 12, we're here. We have lots of room to get a strong training adaptation through our program. So as the coach, trainer, yourself, if you're a fitness enthusiast, make sure you're aware of your daily readiness when you have lower scores and how we can help monitor the level of effort and stress placed on the body. So this is more of a summary here. Okay, always start with ability. This is kind of a programming logic chain that you can kind of visually represent the key elements that we're trying to consider to create effective and tailored programs for your clients, whether it's a group or individual setting. So again, it can use this EPA approach, the equipment position action, to change up the complexity along with the acute variables that we typically do already to get a certain adaptation. And with that being said, I know getting close on time here, so I want to allow some questions and answers. So please find more information. You can use the QR code for our online courses. We have some live workshops coming up as well. Follow us on Instagram, Eleiko Education and Eleiko Sport, and you can also take a look at our website where you can find all the information and where there's going to be a recording of this webinar as well. So thank you very much for joining us today, whether you're taking a break, a lunch break, or if it's the end of your day. I know we have people all over the world looking at this. Greatly appreciate your time and your commitment to make the world a stronger place. Thank you.